turned out. Yeah, she turned. Hey.
Hey, what's good, you guys? It's Boomer with Ballystar, and today we are getting into the Atlantic slave trade. What too few textbooks have told you. You feel me? Now, this is just like a Percy video that I wanted to do type thing, you know, like a personal video that I just personally wanted to watch. And yeah, I just, you know, instead of watching it by myself, you know what I'm saying? Like, I figure I'll watch it with y'all, you know what I'm saying? Those of y'all who clicked on the video and are interested in watching this as well. But yeah, I'm just like, you know what? I've thought about something recently, and I'm just like, hey, I want to check out something like this. You feel me? So yeah, man, let's get straight on into it, man. If you like the video, man, you can hit the like just below the video. Subscribe if you're new, so you can join up with the all-star gang up in this thing. You know what I'm saying? Of course, as you can see, if you check the channel, there'll be, you know, other videos that I do. You know what I'm saying? You know, more that y'all might mess with. You feel me? But yeah, without further ado, let's get straight on into this one. And yeah.
Slavery, the treatment of human beings as property, deprived of personal rights, has occurred in many forms throughout the world. But one institution stands out for both its global scale and
oh yeah, I'm also doing this video because I've done the oversimplified videos where I've watched about the World War II. It's a two-part series, and you know, I watched about like the stuff that it's like, you know, it seemed more interesting than when I learned it in school. You know what I'm saying? It's like these seem different from when you learn these type of subjects in school. You know what I'm saying? Because again, like I said back in my previous video, you know what I'm saying? Like when you're a kid, you know what I'm saying? Like you tend to want to do other stuff more, you know what I'm saying? But it's like now that, you know, like when you're older, and it's like, you know, I never really learned much about this type of thing in school. At least I just never paid attention that much. But you know, it's like, plus I think it's explaining these videos way more entertainingly than it would be in school. You know what I'm saying? Reading like straight off the paper and all that. You feel me? Yeah. But again, I said back in the World War II video when the two-part series one, I was like, yo, they need to be teaching, like showing these in schools, bro, because like these dudes know how to make these type of subjects way more entertaining than when I saw even videos of these type of things in school. And actually, no, some videos would be really, really dope. You know what I'm saying? You remember the box TV sets that they would have in school and all that stuff. You know what I'm saying? Watch documentaries and stuff on them. It'd be dope. But yeah, these are just as entertaining, if not more entertaining. You feel me? So that's why I want to get into this now. I'm like, yeah.
lasting legacy. The Atlantic slave trade, occurring from the late 15th to the mid-19th century and spanning 3 continents, forcibly brought more than 10 million Africans to the Americas. The impact it would leave affected not only these slaves and their descendants, but the economies and histories of large parts of the world. There had been centuries of contact between Europe and Africa via the Mediterranean, but the Atlantic slave trade began in the late 1400s with Portuguese colonies in West Africa and Spanish settlement of the Americas shortly after. The crops grown in the new colonies, sugarcane, tobacco, and cotton, were labor-intensive, and there were not enough settlers or indentured servants to cultivate all the new land. American natives were enslaved, but many died from new diseases, while others effectively resisted. And so, to meet the massive demand for labor, the Europeans looked to Africa. African slavery had existed for centuries in various forms. Some slaves were indentured servants, with a limited term and the chance to buy one's freedom. Others were more like European serfs. In some societies, slaves could be part of a master's family, own land, and even rise to positions of power. But when white captains came offering manufactured goods, weapons, and rum for slaves, African kings and merchants had little reason to hesitate. They viewed the people they sold not as fellow Africans, but criminals, debtors, or prisoners of war from rival tribes. By selling them, kings enriched their own realms and strengthened them against neighboring enemies. African kingdoms prospered from the slave trade, but meeting the Europeans...
See, I always low-key knew this, bro. I was like, bro, there ain't no way. Ain't no way. Like, dang, that's crazy. My family was sold. It's like, it's crazy when you think about it, bro. It's like, dang, we came here from Africa, bro. Like those of us in America right now, man. It's like, damn, it's, we were sold here. We are descendants of sold, like, of course, you know what I'm saying, I'm off like Jamaica, so of course they brought slaves to Jamaica, and that's crazy. But I knew it wasn't just like, yo, boom, like slaves on a ship, and then, you know, come to America, and then boom, like Martin Luther King and all that stuff. You know what I'm saying? It's like, bro, ain't no way just start from the middle, bro. I gotta know the very beginning. I gotta know the tip of the top, bro. Like, how did y'all get slaves? How did y'all get slaves from Africa, man? Because I'm pretty sure, like Indians in North America, you know what I'm saying, that will fight, you know what I'm saying, the English off, we would do the same thing. I'm like, bro, I know we just did not give in like that, bro. Like, come on, son. Like, you see our build? Like, nah, man. But yeah, I just had to know, bro. But I low key knew it. I was like, bro, we had been sold, bro. Like, ain't no way. And but you know, I'm gonna do more research possibly on the slide. But you know, y'all let me know if y'all, you know, want to, you know, if y'all want me to watch more videos like these or so.
Massive demand created intense competition. Slavery replaced other criminal sentences, and capturing slaves became a motivation for. But meeting the Europeans' massive demand created intense competition. Slavery replaced other criminal sentences, and capturing slaves became a motivation for war rather than its result. To defend themselves from slave raids, neighboring kingdoms needed European firearms, which they also bought with slaves. The slave trade had become an arms race, altering societies and economies across the continent. As for the slaves themselves, they faced unimaginable brutality. After being marched to slave forts on the coast, shaved to prevent lice, and branded, they were loaded onto ships bound for the Americas. About 20% of them would never see land again. Most captains of the day were tight packers, cramming as many men as possible below deck. While the lack of sanitation caused many
just
to
like
die of
another
disease,
form of
and others
prison.
were thrown overboard for being sick or as discipline, the captains ensured their profits by cutting off slaves' ears as proof of purchase. Some captives took matters into their own hands. Many inland Africans had never seen whites before, and thought them to be cannibals, constantly taking people away and returning for more.
I mean, with the whole thing with Balenciaga going on, I don't say they're wrong.
Afraid of being eaten, or just to avoid further suffering, they committed suicide or starved themselves, believing that in death their souls would return home. Those who survived were completely dehumanized, treated as mere cargo. Women starved themselves, constantly taking people away and returning for more. Afraid of being eaten, or just to avoid further suffering, they committed suicide or starved themselves, believing that in death their souls would return home. Those who survived were completely dehumanized, treated as mere cargo. Women and children were kept above deck and abused by the crew, while the men were made to perform dances in order to keep them exercised and curb rebellion. What happened to those Africans who reached the New World, and how the legacy of slavery still affects their descendants today?
Because now this raises another question for me, bro. I don't know if there had to been more of the ship crew than there are slaves. But I'm saying if there were more slaves than the ship crew, I mean, well, they couldn't think of no plans or something. Like, that's all I'm saying. It's like, okay, now this question raises up now. It's like, dog, what stopping y'all just from pirating the boat, dog? like these, it's like, bro, come on, man. Like, I'm trying to think that, like, we just did not, I don't know. But I think that, like, we did not think at that time, or so, you know, I don't know why. You know what I'm saying? Like homie said, it could have been a rebellion. I'm like, bro, how could it have not been a rebellion? You know, like, bro, that's crazy to me, bro. All this is crazy, man.
Is fairly well known. But what is not often discussed is the effect that the Atlantic slave trade had on Africa's future. Not only did the continent lose tens of millions of its able-bodied population, but because most of the effect, what happened to those Africans who reached the New World, and how the legacy of slavery still affects their descendants today, is fairly well known. But what is not often discussed is the effect that the Atlantic slave trade had on Africa's future. Not only did the continent lose tens of millions of its able-bodied population, but because most
so they were greedy like that.
of the slaves taken were men, the long-term demographic effect was even greater. When the slave trade was finally outlawed in the Americas and Europe, the African kingdoms whose economies it had come to dominate collapsed, leaving them open to conquest and colonization. And the increased competition and influx of European weapons fueled warfare and instability that continues to this day. When the slave trade was finally outlawed in the Americas and Europe, the African kingdoms whose economies it had come to dominate collapsed, leaving them open to conquest and colonization. And the increased competition and influx of European weapons fueled warfare and instability that continues to this day.
I.e. the child soldiers and frickin' militias and stuff. Rebel militias. Damn, so this been a problem since fucking, 16 to 1800s?
The Atlantic slave trade also contributed to the development of racist ideology. Most African slavery had no deeper reason than legal punishment or intertribal warfare, but the Europeans who preached a universal religion, this ideology. Most African slavery had no deeper reason than legal punishment or intertribal warfare, but the Europeans who preached a universal religion, and who had long ago outlawed enslaving fellow Christians, needed justification for a practice so obviously at odds with their ideals of equality. So they claimed that Africans were biologically inferior and destined to be slaves, making great efforts to justify this theory. Thus, slavery in Europe and the Americas acquired a racial basis, making it impossible for slaves and their future descendants to attain equal status in society. In all of these ways, the Atlantic slave trade was an injustice on a massive scale, whose impact has continued long after its abolition.
Alright, you guys, so that was the Atlantic slave trade, what too few textbooks told you. I mean, it's like, it's crazy what he's saying, man. I don't know, man, like, that's crazy. Y'all let me know your thoughts about that in the comment section down below, man. You already know it's Boomer with Polystar. Make sure you hit that like, support the video, subscribe if you're new so you can join up with the all-star gang up in this thing. 100. Oh!
She turned up, she turned out. Yeah, she turned. Hey.
They don't wanna see me win. Every time I drop, they like, there he goes again. I can't let him get the best of me, get the best of me. They gon' only get the best of me, get the best of me. It ain't easy cause she said, why you leave me on? I know you don't deserve me. We got icy cold, we were once to Albuquerque. Did me wrong, you don't deserve me. She said that you don't deserve me.
Yeah, it goes down in the bar. Girls all flashing, now I'm down.